Good afternoon, everybody. It's October 24, 2025, and it was 34 degrees this morning. It was quite chilly and damp. This is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for subscribing. I appreciate all you guys. Let's see. I've got some news to report before we get on to the topic of the day. I'm sure some of you are aware of the passing of Michaela Raines, the founder, owner of Save a Fox on YouTube. Well, she just suddenly passed away on the solstice at the age of, they're saying that she's 30, that she's 29. We're not exactly sure, but anyway, she's a mommy of one. Saved many, many fox. One of her, I guess, most famous foxes is Finnegan Fox. They even have a YouTube ringtone with her talking to Finnegan that probably hundreds of thousands of people have downloaded, including myself. I saw a recent video, and I know some of you have even stated this after she passed away, that what is going to happen to Finnegan Fox. Well, it turns out for more than a month, Finnegan has been quite ill. He's not eating. And it's obviously, he's grief-stricken. When an owner passes away and the pets are left behind, most people don't consider how to address the feelings and the grief of those pets. Some people suggest allowing the pet to see the deceased person, be with that person, smell that person to let them know they're gone, bring them clothing of the deceased person. I don't know what Ethan, the husband of Michaela, did to allow the foxes to grieve the loss of this wonderful mommy of theirs. But it turns out that Finnegan is really sick. Evidently has been very sick for a couple of months, not eating, and as a result of not eating has caused some internal damage, etc. And it was quite distressing to listen to Ethan talk about this and watch what's going on, when obviously everybody in the comments section was saying it's because Finnegan misses Michaela. But I don't know, some stupid people, they just don't get it that animals do grieve the loss of people. So if anybody wants to go over to the channel, hit the thumbs up over there. They're doing a little fundraiser for the medical bills for Finnegan. Now, you know, the criminals, they will do anything inhumanly possible to harass a targeted person, including but not limited to reporting my comments for copyright when they're my comments and my channel, right? I have spoken the words, they're my words, and I have reposted them on Quora 2 times this week. Some loser reported my comments as being plagiarized. My own comments, mine comments. So of course I had to report back to Quora and tell them that they are my comments that I've made on my YouTube channel that I have just reposted onto Quora. And they apologized and restored my comments. But it happened twice, literally in 5 days, 2 times. And then I saw another YouTube creator targeted woman, Fiona, saying that Quora has been harassing her about posting too. So evidently the criminals are all over Quora. Criminals being, you know, the cyber stalkers, the intel agencies and stuff. They know that we are gaining ground here and waking up the public. They don't like it because they're all being exposed. Number 3, some of you guys know that I have a male cat named Popcorn. I found Popcorn in my garage here. I think it was in July or August of 2019. I was already living in my house, and I kept going back and forth up to the hill, and I kept hearing this like meow, meow, meow. Couldn't find it. Suddenly, I found this little black and white kitten in my garage. Of course, I took it back here, and it had 2 holes in its neck with these boring worms that I had to pull out of his neck. Nurse him back to health and everything. And then as soon as I bring him into the cats building, the criminals break in there and harm his eye. I've got photos of all this stuff. But meanwhile, 6 years later, Popcorn is still here, and he's an outside cat, and he has a wife and 3 other children. Well, no, he's got many children. He's knocked up many women around here, but nevertheless, he's got a wife that he brought back here and 3 kittens that are now young cats. They're here every night, in the middle of the day, every morning. For the last 3 days, his wife is missing, meaning that she went missing on the new moon. Yeah, because we've got a waxing crescent now for 3 days, and she's been gone, missing 3 days. And I'm going to give a shout out to the fucker criminals. You piece of craps that stole that cat. She's not missing, she's stolen. My animals don't go missing. They get stolen. Okay, you piece of craps? So we're on to you. So, no, she's gone. She's not been here for 3 days. And I'm very upset over it. Popcorn's looking for her. Her 3 kittens are looking for her. And she is nowhere. And I want to say something about real estate property taxes. Because here, the Jackson County PVA, Bobby Edwards, who's been in the job since 2023, I've had nothing but grief from that PVA office since he entered the office there, that little piece of crapola. He must be one of those Freemason go-along-to-get-alongs that is going along to get along with the county lawyer and the sheriff's department. You know, because the way it works here, it works differently in other states and communities and stuff. It's not the way it worked in New Jersey. It was very different in New Jersey. But here, the PVA office submits the information, the valuations, to the sheriff's department. It is the sheriff's department that prints and disperses the actual invoices for the property taxes. And it's not unusual for the sheriff's departments to collect property taxes. You know why? You don't pay your property taxes? Guess what? They have these sheriff auctions where they'll steal your property. So I guess little Bobby Edwards was hoping that he'd jack up my property taxes so much that I wouldn't be able to afford to pay them. Which I did in fact pay. And actually, the piece of crap sheriff probably received the check today. But I intend to get my money back. So the point is, and this happens around the country, not just here in Jackson County, Kentucky, although it is quite corrupt here. In New Jersey, you do not get away with increasing somebody's property taxes without clear notification and the ability to dispute it. Although there is a very short period of time that you can dispute it. I think it's 2 weeks, something like that. 12 days, 13 days, 14 days, something like that. So it doesn't give you a lot of time to prepare, you know, like a month. So that's how they get you and stuff. But yes, that's in New Jersey too. I remember getting my property valuation taxes, and I wasn't going to dispute it because it basically goes upon the how they value the properties. And in New Jersey, they value everyone in the development the same according to the square footage of your house and the plot of your property. And it's across the board. You cannot get away with it. You cannot get away with scamming your neighbors and only singling out one neighbor for a property increase. Not in New Jersey. It's all public knowledge. It's all on the website. But not here in Jackson County, Kentucky. Little Bobby Edwards, he goes and selects me, and from the best of my knowledge, nobody else for an increase. And I guess they thought, okay, this is one more way of asset stripping her, and maybe she won't pay it, and then we'll get her land, which they've been trying to do since 2019. When Ross Murray, the county lawyer, in writing, threatened me with eminent domain after I caught my neighbor trespassing my property. Yeah, he was protecting her, protecting the little loser girl next door that has a house that's 5 times the size of mine, almost twice as much property land. I guarantee they don't have a property tax increase. And they're not even 65 or older to get the homestead rebate. Oh, and yes, my huge property tax increase of $1,500 is with the homestead rebate. Without the homestead rebate, it would be close to $2,000. Meanwhile, go search for Jackson County, Kentucky, and you will see online, allegedly has the lowest taxes in the entire country. Well, I beg to differ, because I could find a house 3 times the size of mine anywhere in the country with property taxes $2,500 and less. So they have singled me out for this ridiculous property tax increase. But what little Bobby Edwards failed to recognize, because he didn't ask me, he didn't physically visit here, he didn't tell me what he was reevaluating, is that the entire reason I purchased this property was for my 501c3 nonprofit public charity. Oh, guess what, folks? If you have a 501c3 nonprofit public charity, you too will have 0 property taxes. But little Bobby Edwards, he did not value any part of my property as my nonprofit because he failed to ask. This is called tax fraud. So little Bobby Edwards failed to evaluate large portions of my property, buildings, as a public charity, which they are, in fact, a legal, federally, nonprofit, public charity. In addition to the fact that I am a certified wildlife refuge. But no, Bobby Edwards, he failed to do that. I guarantee my neighbors don't have public charities. I guarantee it. So yes, so he's committed multiple levels of tax fraud here. Besides the fact that I am a senior citizen, and my neighbor diagonally across the street, who was part of this property at one time, was broken off, has completely renovated, gutted the original house that she purchased, added a swimming pool, added a new building, added a deck, patio, pavement, whatever it is she did. I mean, God, I don't even know what else she's done there, right? But I guarantee she did not get a reevaluation or a property tax increase. So I'm just going to say that on the record there. Now, I want to make something clear also. Somebody said something to me in the last Saturday night chat about my ex-mafia boyfriends. Okay, my ex-boyfriend from back in the Bronx, he was a musician. He's part of a band, and he worked in a recording studio. He was not mafia, but his family was. His family was. He grew up in that family, just the way, you know, the Satanists grow up in satanic, ritually abused homes, right? And then some people break free and stuff. No, he was a musician. Sometimes he was actually photographed a couple of times for American Express because he was a handsome-looking guy. He would fill in. So, yeah, so no, my ex-boyfriend back in the Bronx, who I was with for 7 years, engaged to, we were going to be married. We were going to be married at the St. Regis Hotel. That's right, that's how wealthy they were. I had a 3-carat diamond ring, but I broke it off because he started using some drugs, and I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to deal with it. I was young. I wasn't going to go through that. I'm not Nicole Kidman, with what's his name, where they get married and he starts using again. No, I wasn't going to go through that. I was too young. I wanted children and stuff. So no, he was not mafia. He was so not like his family. So I just needed to add that. But his family was, and they have that name, but most of them are not around anymore. One's still in prison, and they're in their 80s, and most of these guys are gone. Okay, we're talking about old. We're not talking about these gang stalkers, these losers. We're talking about the old, cool-looking guys that dressed well. They dressed in suits and ties, and you never know the difference. They would drink their coffee with a little pinky up in the air. So no. So I just wanted to clarify that. Now the topic of the day is through the wall radar. TTWR, through the wall radar. Now, the first time I heard of through the wall radar, it was from my friend, targeted friend, Helena Csorba. She's no longer with us. She was a civil engineer, retired civil engineer. And when she was performing research on what was happening to us, she's the first one in the community that I ever heard talk about this. She said radar is a motion sensor. Through the wall radar, through the wall surveillance, TTWS, radar, gun computers detect micro motion, such as breath rate, heartbeat, speech, and recognizes gesture, gait, eye gaze movement, and emotion. These are human identifying biometric signatures. Pulsed radar radio waves through walls can locate and then track a moving target. The FCC calls these devices radiolocators and intentional radiators. Whether ground penetrating, which is GPR, or building walls penetrating, radar. The computer interprets what it sees, quote unquote, by evaluating the RF echo returns using gaseous, solid, or liquid matters. Dielectric permittivity property. Okay, so let me get to ChatGPT because I wanted some validation from ChatGPT on this through the wall radar. Now, I remember Helena saying that through the wall radar is used during earthquakes. Let's say a building collapses and they're trying to locate people, animals, life within the rubble. They will use through the wall radar to detect that. A lot of times firefighters, before entering a fiery building, they don't know if there's people inside or animals. They don't know unless they use this through the wall radar. They can detect whether or not there's life inside of those buildings. So this is a highly valuable tool in search and rescue. However, when I asked ChatGPT, I said, can you tell me about through the wall radar, how it's used nefariously, and are there laws to prevent its use? And of course, Chat says, good question. This is a tricky, fast-moving area where technology, privacy, and the law collide. Below is a clear, practical summary of what through-the-wall radar, TTW radar, is and how it's used, ways it can be abused, and what U.S. law currently says, and where it's thin and safe legal countermeasures you can consider. I've included authoritative citations for the most important claims. So what is through-the-wall radar? The technology is through-the-wall radar systems use radio frequency, RF waves, often ultra-wideband UWB or millimeter wave MM radar to detect motion, breathing, or shapes behind walls and some other building materials. They do not see like a camera. They infer presence, motion, and sometimes a rough position or shape from reflected RF signals. Products and users. There are commercial and military first responder versions called Lumini, Xavier, small robot-mounted radars, etc. Firefighters and search and rescue teams use them to find survivors. Police and military use them for tactical awareness during raids. And research groups like NIST and universities also publish on improved through-the-wall imaging. So, how TTW radar can be used nefariously. It can be used nefariously by covert surveillance, spying. A through-the-wall radar aimed at a private home or room can reveal whether people are inside, their approximate movements, and, in some systems, even breathing rates. Information someone could use to plan burglaries, stalk opponents, or harass them. This is the main privacy worry, and this was on CBS News. False attribution or harassment. Repeated scans or automated analysis could be used to build profiles of when people are home, when they sleep, who shares a dwelling. This is information that could be useful for blackmail, targeted harassment, or targeted advertisement. And this was located on PMC. Tactical misuse by non-authorities. So let's say private parties obtain through-the-wall devices. Like some consumer-grade units are available. They could scan entire neighborhoods or workplaces without consent. That creates risks similar to classic peeping Tom behavior, but using RF rather than optics, and this was posted in the Office of Justice. So what the law says, the U.S. short version, the government, police, and federal agents. The U.S. Supreme Court, Kylo, K-Y-L-L-O, versus the United States in 2001, is the key starting point. This is a lawsuit. Using sense-enhancing technology, thermal imaging in that case, to obtain information from the interior of a home is a search. It's considered a search under the Fourth Amendment and generally requires a warrant. Courts have repeatedly cited Kylo to require a warrant for similar intrusions. That principle has been widely applied to argue warrants are needed for high-tech scans that reveal private home interiors. And that is happening to most targeted people. Then there's the law enforcement guidance. The Department of Justice, NIJ, OJP reports and vendor guidance make it clear that through-the-wall sensors raise Fourth Amendment issues, and best practice documents advise agencies to treat them cautiously, to get warrants, or rely on exigent circumstances, exceptions. Some federal testing programs have worked on through-the-wall tools for police, but policy and training are emphasized, and this is written by the Office of Justice. Private actors, non-government. There is no single federal ban that says you cannot point radar at someone's home. Instead, many state criminal statutes, peeping Tom, voyeurism, harassment, stalking, can apply if the scanning is done with the intent to observe intimate activity or for sexual harassing purposes. States vary. Some have broad voyeurism peeping statutes that would cover non-optical surveillance, and others are narrower. For example, in Florida, their voyeurism statute criminalizes secret observation in places with a reasonable expectation of privacy. And that was posted in the Florida legislature. Then there is the federal video voyeurism law. I did not know that there was one. So this is 18 USC, section 1801. 18 USC, section 1801, criminalizes capturing certain images on federal property and may be relevant to limited context, but doesn't comprehensively regulate through-the-wall radar used by private parties. And this is written by a lawyer, Eisner Gorin, LLP. The practical reality. Legislators have not created a comprehensive statutory regime specifically for through-the-wall radar nationwide. Instead, courts rely on the Fourth Amendment doctrine for governmental use and existing state criminal tort laws for private use. Many civil liberties groups argue existing laws are inadequate and call for clear statutory limits. So some of the key legal takeaways that you can act on if you suspect this is being done to you. If police use radar to examine your home, in many instances, they should obtain a warrant. You can cite Kylo. If a government agency used an advanced sensing device to obtain information about the inside of your home, you likely have a Fourth Amendment claim because warrantless use is suspect under exigent circumstances or consent applied. And this was legal information. If a private person uses through-the-wall radar on you, criminal charges, voyeurism, stalking, harassment, may apply, depending on state law and intent. Civil claims, invasion of privacy, trespassing, nuisance, intentional infliction of emotional distress are also possible, and laws differ by state. So do local statutes matter. And this was written by the Connecticut, I think the Attorney General. FCC and equipment rules. Some through-the-wall devices operate in regulated RF bands. Some devices need FCC certification or are limited to public safety use. Illegally operating radio transmitters or intentionally jamming signals can violate FCC rules. So don't use jammers. You hear that, criminals? I'm talking to the criminals on my property right now. Don't use jammers. Oh, I've got lists and lists of how many times they've interfered with my Wi-Fi. Best practice guidance for agencies emphasizing using certified gear and following operational and legal checks. This was written by the Office of Justice. So how people detect or reduce the risk. Legal, non-harmful steps that you can use. These are legal and practical. I'm not suggesting anything illegal like jamming. Ha 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 ha. Okay, detection. A radio frequency RF spectrum analyzer or even some consumer RF detectors can reveal active radar emissions in certain bands. Many security professionals use spectrum scanners to identify suspicious RF sources, but this requires some technical knowledge. Shielding. Conductive shielding, like Faraday materials, metal mesh screens, specifically designed for RF shielding, paint, foil behind the walls or in a room. It reduces radar penetration. Full home shielding is non-trivial and costly, but small rooms can be treated. Shielding is lawful. And you can find this information in the publication Science Direct. Behavioral mitigations. Don't store or discuss highly sensitive matters in rooms directly adjacent to exteriors if you're worried. Reorient sensitive activities or add interior barriers that complicates signal interpretation. Documentation and reporting. If you suspect illegal spying, document the dates, times, screenshots. Preserve your evidence, photos of devices. Now chat is saying, consult local law enforcement for criminal reporting. An attorney for civil options. Civil subpoenas or lawsuits can force disclosure of who bought or used equipment in some cases. Again, this is written by the Office of Justice. So what governments, courts, and civil liberties groups are arguing? Civil liberties groups like the ACLU and the EFF, that's the Electronic Frontiers, they push for clear rules, warrants for police, bans or strict limits for private use, transparency and public debate before agencies adopt through-the-wall technology broadly. They consider through-the-wall radar to be among the surveillance tools that can chill private life and need democratic oversight. This was written by the ACLU. Law enforcement and first responders point to life-saving benefits like finding a hostage victims, improving officer safety, search and rescue, and say these technologies are valuable if policy and legal safeguards are in place, like warrants, training, audit logs are in place. The OJP and NIJ guidance stresses training and legal review. So now here are some questions and follow-ups. Is it illegal for police to use through-the-wall radar without a warrant? Usually a warrant is required under KYLO for tech that reveals details of the home, and courts treat similar modern sensors as searches in many cases. But exigent circumstances, like if something is in imminent danger, can justify warrantless use. Oh yeah, so they're going to call you, oh, you're in imminent danger, you're a targeted individual, you're a domestic terrorist, to get around the warrant. Or they'll just get some corrupt judge to sign some fake warrant, right? Is a private person criminally liable for pointing through-the-wall radar at my house? Answer: possibly. It depends on the state, your state voyeurism and stalking laws, and the intent. Like, why would somebody point radar at your home? Like, what would be the purpose? Many states criminalize secret observation of people in places with reasonable expectation of privacy. So you would need to check your state statute and consult counsel. Can I legally jam or destroy the device? No. Jamming or destroying property is probably illegal. The FCC rules for jamming. Criminal damage for destruction. Oh, did you hear that? Criminals listening to my recording? You are not allowed to jam the signals. It's against the law. Don't do that. Use legal steps, document, report, seek a restraining order or civil suit if warranted. The Office of Justice states this. Then there are practical steps. If you think you're being scanned, document suspected events, photos, times, audio, video of suspected devices. Scan with an RF detector or have trusted security professional do a sweep. This identifies active transmitters. I was going to have that done in New Jersey. When I had a private detector come to my house, he was going to scan my house, and that night, my house was broken into. Yep. They were probably scared to death and had to get rid of all the things that they implanted in the house before this guy came back. Contact local law enforcement to report stalking and harassment. Oh, yeah, right. Ask whether they treat through-the-wall scans as potential criminal acts. Bring your documentation. Well, that's a good question. That would be a good question to FOIA a police department. You could ask them, How do you treat through-the-wall scans as a potential criminal act? If police are the suspected operators, consult an attorney immediately. Yeah, right. Consult an attorney about civil claims, invasion of privacy, nuisance trespass, and about whether warrants were required if law enforcement scanned you. These are Fourth Amendment claims that hinge on government action and Kylo, the lawsuit. Consider shielding or moving sensitive activities to a better protected room if you have a serious, persistent threat. Hire physical security consultant for assessment. Like, most of us can't do that. So some of the sources that were used here for further reading, and I will show it to you. Let me just show it to you. Kylo versus United States, 533 U.S. 27, 2001. Court warrant ruled for thermal imaging sensors. News reporting civil liberties commentary. Okay, see, this is further reading in case you're interested. But you can also just type in a search, through-the-wall radar, TTW, etc. So I hope you found this useful, because many people are saying, how do they know what I'm doing inside my house? There are so many methods that are utilized for tracking you in your house, for seeing what's going on in your house. This is one of the methods they use, through-the-wall radar. Another is that they have little mini cameras in your home. They have surveillance cameras in your home. They have your DNA, so they can track you through your DNA. They also infect your home with nanoparticles, nanodust, and this yellow drippy stuff. And I noticed you can only see it under blacklight. I found it at 52 Sutton Drive, Manalapan, New Jersey, a home I lived in for 30 years as the original owner. And then here in Jackson County, Kentucky, where I've lived now for six plus years. And mind you, this home was brand new when I bought it. It should not have any of this nano stuff, dust in it, inside. But what they have done, and what they do, and most people have reported this, is when you have a black light, you will see little streaks of yellow. I believe it's phosphorus. It's reflective, and the criminals can see it while they're scanning your house. So they'll put a little bit on your light switch, a little bit on your stove, a little bit on your refrigerator. I think this is also how they're detecting where things are in your house, by these little reflective tags. I'll just call them tags. You'll find one on your sink, on your stove, light switches, in the bathroom, big in the bathroom for some reason. I think that when your shower is on and the heat and the moisture and stuff, I think that you're being subjected to some gaseous materials that way. But I hope you found this useful. So in summary, a Finnegan fox is in trouble. He's not feeling well. He's grieving the loss of Michaela Raines, who did not take her own life on her own. Quora is being infiltrated by perpetrators, and these perpetrators are reporting our own written words for copyright infringement. My cat Popcorn's wife is missing. 3 days now, ever since the new moon. Real estate property taxes, little Bobby Edwards here, the Jackson County PVA, the loser boy. He was never able to produce the letter that he claims to have written, alerting me to the increase in my property taxes. Even with a FOIA request, he still cannot produce the letter that he sent, because he never sent a letter. He never intended on sending a letter. He never intended on me disputing it. But the little loser boy failed to review my property as a 501c3 nonprofit public charity, which is exempt from property taxes. Exempt from property taxes. Little Bobby Edwards. So yes, yo. So yeah. We're gonna keep on reporting you for tax fraud, property tax fraud. No, you're not getting my property. I did pay my property taxes, so no, you can't steal my property because I didn't pay the property taxes. Another one of your goals. And no, my ex-boyfriend is not mafia, but his family was. My ex-boyfriend was a musician. But anyway, this is Lorraine Alternative Homesteading, signing off for now. Leave your questions and comments down below. And thank you all for listening. I'll talk to you guys soon.